Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Inside Furman Athletics. I am Dan Scott, the voice of the Paladins. Happy to have you with us. This will be the last one of these we do until August, as we'll take a summer break. And to that end, you'll notice there is no coach in between Jason Donnelly and I, as is usually the case. The athletic director is here, and it's going to be just the two of us and your questions over the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour. Boss, how you doing?
I'm doing good, but the first thing you warned me of when I got up here was how cold it is. And
I told you.
And I agree. And it's been 90-degree weather. It's been beautiful weekends. It's been awesome the last couple of days here. But man, it is cold. And if it could, I don't know if it's ever been this cold in South Carolina.
I as I get older, I'm understanding why people move from cold weather cities to warm weather cities. I cannot stand being cold.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I love the snow growing up, and I love being up there in the north. But once you get south and you realize how good it is, you don't miss it. It's just something different about it. But it's good. But Dan, thanks for doing this. It is kind of surreal that we've gotten through a year because it's gone really fast.
Yes.
But it's been a really, really good year, a very exciting year. One of the first things I wanted to say was just thank you to everyone who has supported Furman Athletics during the course of this past year and even further back. It's been great. We have felt the support. We've felt the love. We've had some significant achievements. We'll talk about that. But our coaches, our student athletes, the people who support these programs really feel very strongly about our fan bases, which is one of the reasons why we do this, is to engage and touch base, particularly as we're getting to this point of the year where things are starting to wrap up. Before we get to that, Dan, though, I do want to say a special thank you to you. We had a special moment last week, kind of a new tradition that we're gonna keep going, and Dan was a big part of it. We had our first we have a department meeting, kind of department awards and accolades, but we had our first interdepartment softball scrimmage against student life and academic affairs. What was your take as the voice of the Paladins as you were announcing the games? Because you didn't have the rosters, you didn't know who everybody was. I mean, there was definitely a lot of bloopers. But what were your thoughts?
I thought it was fun. I was impressed with a basketball guy launching one into the parking lot for what was it, 2 or 3 run home run. By the way, athletics beat student life 21-5, and we actually gave them the last 2 runs because we let everybody else hit,
yes,
even though 3 outs were already done. But so it was the massacre that you would hope it would be from an athletic department. But no, it was fun. It was fun. I had actually planned on playing until Drew asked me to do the PA, and I thought, okay, that'll be fun too. So we got to have a little bit of fun with that. Matt Davidson comes up, the men's golf coach. Quiet, please. Have a little fun with it. But it was a nice day.
It was great. It was we had a whole department out there, and everyone was on our athletics team, and basically everyone gets in a bat and gets a chance to spend some time together.
It was an adult version of T-ball.
It was fun, and it was one of those things where to bring people together from this department, you just realize how strong the people are that are a part of it. It was really nice to play with our partners in student life and academic affairs, and faculty members and deans and different people that do that. And Dan, I get a bad rap. I'm a basketball guy. I'm a former baseball player, played football. I mean, I've done other sports, so I can bring it back when I need to. But there was some really strong performances on the athletics team.
I think the most surprising performance of all, to me, came from Doug Allison.
Without a doubt.
who will tell you, and he is, of course, the men's soccer coach here. He is Scottish. And Scottish, yeah. So he's from across the pond.
I think he's English.
Huh?
I think he's English.
Well, he's from across the pond.
Across the pond, yeah.
So anyway, he tells you he knows nothing about baseball. In fact, the only baseball trivia question he knows is who invented the baseball glove, and the reason he knows that is because the guy's name was Doug Allison. But he laid down a 2-strike bunt his first time up to keep from striking out. And this may be the first time he's ever swung a bat in his life. And then the next time he lined one off the fence.
Yeah, his first at-bat may have been one of the worst at-bats of all time.
Until he put the bunt down.
Bunt, yeah. which was really a perfectly laid down bunt. But no one, as you know, bunts in softball. And then he steps up to the plate next time, hits a home run. So we don't know which it was. We don't know if Doug was messing with us and one historically bad at bat. At least the first 2 swings were really bad. but it was a lot of fun. But
it was a good day.
But that, as we look at those things, it's kind of building the camaraderie in our department and building the people. And one of the things that we, you got to remind ourselves, like, I've been fortunate enough to be here for 3 years now, but we're just getting back to a sense of normal. There's things that we would normally do that we're just getting back to. We were worried about COVID in January with things during basketball season and things along those lines. So not to say we're not worried about it, but that we're taking major strides to get back to a sense of normalcy. Some of the things I wanted to talk about just as we look back, even though we're wrapping a lot of things up, there's still a lot going on. If you get a chance today, you can check out Anna Morgan on the Golf Channel. Anna has advanced to the final round of the NCAA Championships, currently in 5th place. It'll be hard to overcome the leader out of Stanford, but for her to perform that well, representing Furman Golf, is just remarkable. In addition, Julia Adams and Ellie Shoppy will be competing in the NCAA Championships for women's tennis. Again, both programs having great years, winning the Socon Championships, advancing to the NCAAs, and now they're in the individual stage of that. Track and field goes on forever. It's one of those sports that goes well into June, but it's really remarkable to have 6 of our athletes competing. We'll compete this weekend. We'll continue to hopefully compete going all the way into June. So there's a lot going on, and that program continues to set records and continues to set pace. But the big news this past weekend is something we were going to talk about, is the fact that Clint, our own Furman soccer, Clint Dempsey, getting into the National Hall of Fame, and just his international notoriety. And for those that don't know, Clint came back to campus a few weeks ago as part of a soccer alumni day, and it was really special. It was really special to see our alumni gathered, spending time with him, and he was just one of the guys. Like, you wouldn't even know, he was there. He doesn't bring any fanfare to him, but to see the looks on the faces of our men's and women's soccer players who wanted to spend time with him, and for him to be so gracious, was truly incredible. But were you here when Clint was playing, or was that pre-Dan Scott?
That was well before me, yeah.
But he's amazing. Another notable accomplishment I thought was pretty cool was Clyde Mays getting into the Socon Hall of Fame. And I think for a lot of us, there's a little bit of a shock that it didn't happen already. But congratulations to Clyde, and what a well-deserved honor for him. So just a lot of really good stuff going on around Furman Athletics overall as we wrap up the year.
Yeah, Clyde had in previous years filled in the analyst role on some basketball broadcasts. I had a chance to work with him. Clyde's one of a kind.
Yes. Yeah, and he up until COVID was attending a lot of basketball games pretty regularly. So to have him in the house and to see what he has done for Furman basketball and to hear the stories about that generation are pretty special. Other thing you and I were talking about a little bit that I think is worth mentioning, you had an opportunity to spend a lot of time with our softball program, our women's lacrosse program this past spring. And congratulations to Stacy Johnson-Whitfield, who has earned the head coach position in softball. And you've obviously got a chance to see her up close. I've had a chance to evaluate her. We've asked for some outside evaluators who I trust in the world of softball to evaluate her. And she's done a remarkable job with leadership, with coaching, with culture, with chemistry. She's developing a program, developing as a recruiter. She's got an excellent staff. So just a lot of really good things going on for Stacy as she looks to build. Exciting to go watch her compete up at the Socon tournament and to see where we're at and what we need to do to continue to get better. But what were your thoughts on Stacy and also Kirkland Lewis, our new women's lacrosse coach?
Well, just the opportunity to get to know both of them with the trial run of the new programs that we'll put into full effect come next season. To get a chance to talk with them every Monday, not just on the air but off the air, and get to know them a little bit. I couldn't be more impressed, and part of it's got to do with what they did on the field. If you look at the circumstances both coaches took over, there was a lot of reasons for their seasons not to be successful, and both of them I think really overachieved on the field. So that's part of it, but just getting a chance to know them personally, and to know what kind of people they are, and to see the appreciation they have for the opportunities they've been given, and then the chance to do what we were doing and reach out to their fans. It was a really good stretch of Mondays that we get a chance to talk to them. I'm looking forward to a full season next year.
Yeah, and one of the things that we get to see is the leadership from within. For both Stacy and Kirkland as new head coaches. And, if people don't know, Stacy was a superstar player. Just incredible. and has done a lot of coaching leading up to this opportunity in terms of what she's been doing. But she brings a lot to the table, and the best way you can see it is through the team. You can see the impact that they have in student athletes and the way they feel about them, and it's never perfect. This is not when you start coaching a program, you're going to have ups and downs and things you go through. But to your point, there was reasons that it could not have worked out this year in a transition year for both programs, and both overachieved. Women's lacrosse, for them to finish third place, to go all the way to the semis, and the two teams that went to the championship, both really, really good teams, strong programs. And one of the strongest things you can look at with women's lacrosse, they're in a little bit of a rebuild going back about 2 years ago. They only had about 20 people on the roster. That's a sport that can carry 35 to 40. So really excited to see where this goes for both of them and how they grow, and how we invest and how we continue to push things forward with both of them. But they're in a really good spot, and we're excited about one thing. We haven't formally announced it, but we need to. Just the continued work that we have with you, Dan, and the great work you've done in our community. We want to continue to broadcast more. You've been everywhere. So one of the things we've really enjoyed is for a Furman follower, the work you've been doing this year has been really, really strong in terms of interviews, interaction, engagement, videos, just being everywhere in a presence. So I think the majority of our community feels really tuned in. If you're looking for content, you can go back and check all these things out from the past year. But we're going to continue our relationship formally with the ESPN Upstate, which is now the Fan. It's been a great partnership for us. They definitely promote and support Furman. If anything, they're a little bit critical on the big boys sometimes. They go after South Carolina and Clemson a little bit, and they appreciate the partnership that we have with them, and we're working towards continuing to grow that. And Dan has been a huge part of that. That was your initiative that we got off the ground to do that. But we will have an emphasis on football and basketball, and we're also going to look to do a little bit of softball with Dan a little bit next year, in addition to the great work that you do with our partners at the Greenville Drive. But very excited about that, as I hope you are as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look around at what a lot of schools our size are doing and the way they're trending away from over-the-air radio, and for us to have the partnership and the on-air signal and presence that we have that covers all of Greenville County, all of Spartanburg County, and gets into the other counties in our surrounding area with that clear FM signal on the top-rated sports talk station in the market. It's an incredible opportunity, and in fact, Megan Zapp and I were talking about it at the picnic the other day. She is our with Van Wagner, our rights holder. She is our general manager here for the property, and we're exploring ways to take further advantage of what we have, because we have an opportunity with this radio deal in this market to, I know something that's strong where your heart's concerned, generate more revenue.
Yeah, and that's a bigger part of the plan, is that I think so. We'll talk about this a little bit when we get into questions and things like that, but we're in a growth proposition here for Furman Athletics, and we're building upon history and tradition. And Furman's had an excellent history and tradition. At the end of the day, we're just focused on being the best Furman we can be, which is being the best private school in the upstate, Greenville, South Carolina, in this region in terms of what we're doing in the southeast, and then eventually nationally with everything we're doing with our programs that fits us. And it's really important we don't get caught up in trying to be bigger or better than Clemson, South Carolina. We've got to be unique to what Furman is, and we've got to be true to where we are in Greenville. And the whole concept of this is to being Greenville's team is strategic partnerships. It's getting in front of the right people. It's all the things that you do. You go out and speak at the Rotary. It's the things that we do with our corporate sponsors and our engagement. It's the things we got to do with Greenville Township School Systems. There's a reason why we partner with the Bon Secours Wellness Arena and the Swamp Rabbits and the Drive and the Triumph and the Liberty, is that there's a synergy that's going on right now in Greenville that we've all got to catch hold of and be a part of. And one of the things we get when we do some of this work with Anthony Herrera and all the different things we're doing outside of the box is that there's a lot of people in Greenville, been here for a long time, and some people are brand new. They've never even stepped foot on our campus or haven't felt engaged with what we do. And we have to use our athletics program as a front porch to be accessible to them. We also have a responsibility to serve this community, and that's going to be a big point of emphasis for next year, because some of the questions I'm getting is, hey, what more are you, what are you going to do here? What are you going to do there? Part of it is we've got to do more for our community. We've got to be better partners in the way that we serve. And during COVID, we weren't even allowed to do certain forms of community service or engagement, or the type of things that really make a true impact. And whether that's in homeless shelters, or if that's in hospitals, or if that's in schools, if that's just serving in a way that we do through our faith and our family and our values, we have got to do a better job post-COVID of returning to what the real value mission here is. The other thing we've got to remember is that it's really specific to what we're trying to accomplish at Furman, which is an emphasis on having this phenomenal undergraduate student education and experience with athletics excellence where we're competing for championships. And that's really what we're able to do here. And to your point, part of that's revenue. It's how do we drive those things and where do we go? But I feel really good about it. One of the things I wanted to share today, as we look back on the year, is there's some metrics that we use to evaluate how we're doing and where we're doing. And I shared some of these with the department the other day. But overall thoughts on the year, amongst them, we focus on health and wellness. I feel really good about the people we have involved with our department, the coaches, the staff, the mentors, the student athletes, the quality of the people, with a focus on all the things that matter, everything from mental health to physical wellness and all the different things that go there. But to have another year we've gotten through and had a really healthy year, in my mind, I'm incredibly proud. Was really excited to see Craig Clark get promoted with Elaine Baker's retirement. Elaine has done a great job here, has been a legend in our department in terms of what she's done for this university and our department. But Craig Clark and his staff and Andre Bernardi and the work that he's done and Matt Aldridge with our basketball program, just really, really good, really great work. The other thing I want to talk about is that we evaluate is graduating complete student athletes. And, just 2 weeks ago, we had graduation right here in the football stadium. And the sense of pride that we have and the people that we're putting out there, at the end of the day, that's our most important mission. Mm-hmm. It's are we treating people right, and are we giving them the education they deserve that they need to be successful? And when you look at the most successful students on our campus, people like Camp Sisson with football, with a 4.0 GPA, and Isabella Gutierrez with women's soccer, and Drew Singerman with tennis. I mean, we got 3 student athletes out of 5 or 6 overall that were perfect 4.0 students out of the whole campus, and this shows you the level that we're at. And with the department being above a 3.0 again for the 7th straight semester, and a 3.2 GPA, just shows you across the board. I mean, we've got more students that are above a 3.0. We got more students that are Dean's List, and we, greater than half the number of student athletes that we have in our entire department. So we're really proud there. The other thing that we focus on is competing to win championships. And with our programs this year, we were there with all of them. There wasn't a single program that was not in the mix to do this, and that's really, at the end of the day, how we evaluate what we do. We just talked about softball and lacrosse. There were 2 programs. We weren't sure how they were going to do it based on where they started the year. And both were semifinal contestants in terms of their leagues and competing for championships. Another sport like volleyball, they had struggled a bit last year, but they also played their best volleyball at the end of the year. But we look at our bigger sports, we look at our footballs, we look at our basketballs, and both basketballs competing for championships, going all the way right down to the last second in terms of where we were going to be in both, and our golfs and our tennises and our track and fields and our soccers just doing what they do. And we're expecting big things out of football this year. That's going to be a real big point of emphasis is our football program returning to prominence and being the type of program that's going to compete for a Socon championships. And love what Clay Hendricks has done with his staff, with his roster, and really feel really good about where they're at overall. So very excited for an exciting year ahead. The stretch in September is going to be a tough stretch. We've got 3 games in a row on the road, which opens up a bye for us later in the year when we're going to need it. But surviving early and getting through the season in terms of what we need to do with a tough schedule is going to be part of what we do in terms of what we're growing into, and got great faith and trust in Clay in terms of where we're going. The other things that we focus on when we're evaluating our program is a culture of compliance and collaboration. And I feel great with where we are, and we want to do more. So when I say feel great, but I do look back on the positive changes we were able to make around our campus, engaging athletics for our students, for our faculty, for our staff, for our fans, for our community. And sometimes it's hard to remember all the way back to September and October when we got this football season started. But, we listened to the students, and we got great feedback from them, and we did things that fit them in terms of the student fan zone. We made changes with our alumni that changed the atmosphere and the tailgating that was intended to be intentional in terms of what we're trying to do to bring out the best in Furman football. And felt great about that. And to have 4 games where we were over 10,000 in attendance just was remarkable in terms of what we're doing, what we're building into. And there'll be little things like people say, well, you'll never serve beer at Furman. Well, we did. That was a part of what we do to enhance the fan experience, and had fireworks and great game day experience and night games and change times and experiences for everyone that was a part of it. So feel really good about all of that. Also feel really good about collaboration with campus. Probably about a year ago, or maybe even when we were doing these interviews in August or September, one of our greatest concerns and worries was that we were getting to a point academically where we've got these high-level student athletes who are graduating early or had more time with COVID, and we didn't have an option for them academically. Well, now we do. We've got a bona fide master's program that many of our programs are tapping into and using, and it's just the beginning. It's just the start of a process of working with academic affairs and working with the deans and working with Anthony Herrera and working with these different programs that are going to allow us more academic opportunities to retain and develop our student athletes. So feel really good about that, because a year ago today, that was something we were focused on, and we were able to get from one year to the next to see where we could get to. And then the last thing as we evaluate, we look at raising revenues and managing expenses. Well, we couldn't have had a better year. We had another record-breaking year in fundraising. We're going to eclipse $12 million, which is a great reflection on the support that people feel for this athletic department. So fundraising numbers have been great, and then they're still trending in the right direction, and a lot of excitement as we continue to move forward. Revenues were up nearly 20%, which is remarkable. So if you talk about a 20% increase in a department that just went through a 20% cut in terms of what we're doing on our budget, it's just remarkable. So I just think when you look at what we're doing with where we're going, it's awesome. And one of the biggest thanks I would have would be to all of our partners on Dins Day. The shout out to the people that are supporting athletics across the board. Athletics dominated Dins Day. It wasn't even close. And it was all the teams that really drove this, whether it was football or basketball or strength and conditioning or softball or soccer or track and field. It was just awesome to see that kind of support. So everything we're trying to do when we look at the year was done in a really high-level way, and we got to continue to build on those things.
It's like like sales and meeting a budget. And I know you know this, and you have I'm sure let everybody else know this. Once you reach a certain level, there's no going back.
Right.
You have to continue to build. As a matter of fact, Megan and I were just talking about the other day and how the Van Wagner revenues have increased and kind of reached a record for Furman. And I just joked with her. I said, well, there's no going back now.
Right.
But that's the reality of where we are.
Yeah, and this is the hardest part of this whole thing, is that we can't be content with any success we've had. We've got to continue to push forward for excellence. We talk about this academic and athletics excellence, that we've got a model of what we want to accomplish. And that's why I referenced the championships. The championships is the standard for the teams. That's what our coaches are working toward. And Andre Bernardi says it, lead is the standard. I think it's a good way to send it sometimes. But we know what we're trying to accomplish on the field and with our student athletes. We know what we're trying to accomplish academically with our mission. But we have a responsibility to continue to have sustainable success. And what sustainable success means is the ability for us to last time. One of the things we're going to talk about a little bit in the fan questions is the concept of, how do you manage a budget? How do you manage expectations? Well, we are still a tuition-driven athletic department. And what that means is that we are dependent on student tuition to operate regardless of our budget. So that even though we're making money and doing well, or fundraising and doing well, we still operate in the red, which means that as a small private liberal arts school, we have a responsibility to continue to become sustainable, and that means we've got to look at our budget, our place in university mission. We got to look at if there's changes in enrollment that really affects how we're able to operate. If there's changes in revenue, such as there was during COVID, that affects our ability to operate. So until you get to the point that you control your own destiny, and controlling your own destiny means getting to a point where you have the money to operate and do the things that you want to do, then you're always beholden to that. So we have to embrace that model. We have to know what that means. And we've also got to work towards a future where we don't have to operate that way, where we can be self-sufficient. One of the questions that was in the question list was talking about, do our programs operate in the black or the red? Well, they all operate in the red. It's a part of being a college athletics program, is that we're dependent on tuition subsidy to do that. And football is an example. Football is our most expensive operation when you look at the number of people involved in it. But the number one thing is the scholarships. Is how do you support 60-plus scholarships at nearly $70,000 a pop? It's an expensive proposition. But football also is our number one revenue driver. So when you look at the value of football, football brings so much to this campus in history, tradition, exposure, opportunities, diversity, all the different things. But it brings revenue, significant revenue to this campus. And revenue comes in many different forms. It's not just ticket sales or concessions or parking. But there's marketability that comes with. There's corporate engagement. There's all kinds of different metrics. There's successful fundraising. So we look at all those things. You look at a sport like basketball. Basketball has the greatest upside for Furman in terms of continuing to bring more and more revenue as we continue to look at the impact of that program. and the engagement. Our engagement coming off that Socon championships, there was like a 700% increase in engagement when you look at the web hits and all the different things that took place following that Socon championship, following one national TV game where we lost by 4 seconds to go to the NCAA tournament. There's just some incredible things. But when you look at fundraising over the last 3 years, by far, men's basketball and cross-country track and field have led the way when it comes to fundraising in the middle of 3 consecutive great fundraising years for the department. So there's all these different assets that we look at in terms of where we're going to be. One of the things I wrote, just in terms of where we're headed, we got to be really careful where we're headed because we're headed into an uncertain future. And I know people don't want to hear this, but it's just the reality of where college athletics is. There is so much spinning around us, and there are so many conversations that are taking place right now, and it's not any one thing. It's a convergence of many different factors. The number one factor that's affecting all of this is the revenue generation that comes with college athletics at the highest level when you think about the Alabamas and the LSUs and the USCs, meaning like Southern Cal, like how much money is going on around these football programs in Michigan and Ohio State. And it's the whole concept of pay and compensation and all the different things that go into it that affect the money and the marketability of all these athletic departments and where does this all stand together. So right now, as we speak, there's leaders in college athletics and the NCAA that are working on a model that's going to dictate the future. Where we want to be in this future is we want to be a part of this process. We want to be able to compete with national championships across the board. And the hope is that in all of our sports, we'll have an opportunity to continue to compete in a similar fashion to where we are today. But there's no guarantees. This is changing really quick. Leaders that are in this space, I got a call later today, a national AD's call to talk about it. They're being really affected by changes in revenue models and changes in fundraising models. And, you got the transfer portal going on, you got NIL going on, and you got extra COVID years going on. So it's these 3 things at the same time that have caused a little bit of disruption in the model.
And I would say more than a little bit of disruption.
A lot.
Yeah.
It's a total game changer in the whole way the whole thing operates because you've added all these things at the same time without any guardrails around them or legislation around them to protect institutions. And it's a lot. And it doesn't mean that they're wrong. It's the only thing in life that's true is that things are going to change. As you go through a process of these things, you got to be prepared to change. So our responsibility when we look at these things is we have to have an effective model for Furman that will allow us to adapt to changes and allow us to be sustainable and successful over time. And we got to focus on, where is the best future for Furman? Where do we fit into this model? What are the things that we have to work on? So since I got here, one of the things we've been working on is a little bit of a top-down, bottom-up model. And I've shared this in donor conversations, and we've gotten great support in this. And what that means is we got to look at the financial impact of what it means to operate an athletic department in this space. And it's kind of like paying a mortgage. It's kind of like if you buy a house, you got a 30-year mortgage, you got to say, okay, how am I going to pay this thing down over time? So on the back end, it becomes an asset, it becomes an investment for you on the back end. And it kind of works in a couple different ways. The first thing is we've got a philosophy around how we're going to run our athletic department, and that all these teams have equal status in terms of how we treat them from a treatment standpoint. And it's a line I've had for a long time as a part of other programs. But everyone's status is the same, everyone's role is different. So role means that even though everyone's treated at the same level in terms of how our value system is, we have to prioritize revenue generation sports in the sense that we have to make them successful and profitable so they can benefit the rest of the department. Mm-hmm. And what that means is as we support football and as we support basketball and if we support other revenue generation sports, those revenue generation sports should have the assets that should allow other sports to be successful by driving as much of the revenue into the department that allows us to grow. We've been doing it. That's why I said there's a 20% increase in revenue this past year. It's a noticeable thing because people are supporting these sports with having a model that sustains it. Now, it's not enough. And what I mean by that is that at Clemson, their whole brand is being driven by basketball. By football. The football animal is driving all of it. So all the money that's coming in there, if it's $100 million in revenue, is able to pay for a lot of the operations and the things that they do within the department that they have. Now, they've also got basketball. They've also got baseball. They've also got different things.
National television contracts and money.
Exactly. And then the ACC, which is really interesting, is actually saying, you know what, we don't have as much money as the SEC. We don't have as much money as the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. So even inside their world, everyone thinks their world is so much better than what we got going on. They've got their own challenges, and they've got their own places where they got to catch on and compete. So our job here is to grow our brand, to present us with opportunities so we can continue to grow, to understand our space and what we've got to do, and have this top-down approach when it comes to revenue generation that we've got to grow. If we can add other revenue generation sports and pay for them and have them be successful, we will do that. We're not stuck in any space of where we are. And even though we've gone through difficult cuts and we're trying to figure things out of what we had to do, we had to survive, basically a 4-year period of time here where our enrollment was down, our revenues were down, and we had to get through this. So it doesn't mean it's forever, but we got to have revenue strategies that are associated with our sports, both from a net revenue perspective when it comes to tuition and also when it comes to revenue that comes from outside sources. So that's a top-down approach when you look at that. The bottom up of this, it's really been going well, is we've got to get to a point where we can pay for our Olympic sports. And what I mean by that are our cross countries, track and fields, our golfs, our tennises through endowment that allows the scholarships to not have to be funded by the institution, but to be funded through outside support and donors. And the beauty of Chris Bork and his gift is that he's already done this for cross country, track and field. That program is paid for, and that program will exist for perpetuity. And it's going to be successful for a long, long time, and it has a growth model built into it through that endowment. We're doing the same thing right now with golf. There's some great leadership going on with our men's golf program, with our women's golf program, that's going to allow these opportunities to be sustainable and successful down the road, and that's a great commitment there. We're doing the same thing with our tennis programs, that we're trying to grow those at different areas there. And if you get to the point where your Olympic sports, those sports I just mentioned, are funded, you're in a really good spot, because if your scholarships are paid for, those sports can continue to be successful and grow, and the investment is not the same level that you have with a football or basketball. And then in the middle, we've got what I would consider championship sports, which would be our soccers, which would be our volleyballs, which would be our softballs and our lacrosses. And we've got to make incremental changes around those sports to allow them to be successful. And then we've got to work with the university to provide a value add. We've got to work to the point where how do we become successful with them to kind of add all these things together. And then that's where you look to grow. That's where, sometimes, everybody says, hey, less is more. Well, less is more when you don't need as much. And you're going to see a future in college athletics where they may condense down to 8 sports that are really revenue generation championship level sports, and the rest may be different because they got to figure out what they can afford and what they got to invest in. And we've got to do similar things in terms of how we invest, but we got to invest with a tuition-driven model in mind, a fundraising-driven model in mind, a championship-level model in mind, and that's really where we're headed. So that's kind of a look at like the bigger piece of what we're trying to work on when we talk about the department as a whole.
This is Inside Furman Athletics with Jason Donnelly. It's our last episode until August as we take a little time to, I say unplug and unwind, but from your standpoint, from a lot of people's standpoints, we talk with the coaches all the time. They may not be playing games, but there really is no off season anymore.
There's no off season, and I remember back when I was coaching, you got 1 week off in May, you got 1 week off in August, and that was it. And if you didn't take it, you lost it. Like, you literally, like, that was all you got. And these coaches are working all year round, and they're building programs that are very successful. They're fully committed. Was just texting with Clay Hendricks this morning. He and his staff are taking a quick break right now because next week they're back, and their student athletes are back a week after that. So it's on as we go. The summer is an exciting time in college athletics. I really believe that you win championships in the summer. And it's the work that you do in the weight room. It's the work that you do in individual instruction. It's the work that you do with your culture. In our championship teams, as they compete, they'll be coming back this summer to do that. It's also a time for coaches to run camps, which is a great way to engage young people and outside sources and to have your student athletes be a part of that process and to recruit and do the different things that you do. But, we're off and running. I met with our department last week, and I told them everyone needs to take a break, yourself included, Dan. Everybody's got to take some time off. It's really important that everyone right now realizes that this last year was a bear and a really good thing, but we got to take some time off. And then we got to focus also on our development and our plan. So I'm really excited. Our administrators are working really hard on a plan for next year and a lot of really good things. And the base for us is there. This isn't us doing a ton of changes to what we got to do. This is us taking a model that works, making it more successful, engaging more people. Talking with Coach Ritchie, he was pretty clear about what's important to him, which I think is the same thing that's important to us in all these different areas. One of the different things is continue to invest in our department, to continue to grow. strategically, and whether that is through fundraising or through resource generation or through advocacy for the things that we need to do. That's one area that we focus on this summer. The second thing is growing our fan base. We've got to continue to get more and more people connected to Furman. So if our fans are listening, the best thing you can help us with is the ability to help us grow as a department by bringing more people to being a part of Furman athletics. I would encourage you to reach out to Dan, to reach out to me. How can we engage your groups? How can we engage your networks? How can we engage more of your friends and fans? If you want to bring your entire church to a football game, they can come. They can be our guests. If you want to bring your entire youth organization to a basketball game, they can come. We just want more and more people to experience Furman, because when they come to Furman, they have a great experience and they want it participating and staying with us longer. And those are the goals of what we're working on and where we're headed as a department. The third thing is our capital projects and working on, Timmons Arena in earnest, all the work that's been going on behind the scenes. And I feel really good about it. Leaving the board meetings and knowing where we are from a facility standpoint, knowing what we have in front of us potentially with fundraising, we're in a good spot. So the things that we've been doing are really good. Doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight. Doesn't mean it's going to happen as quick as everybody wants it to. But the donors that have engaged at a high level have really been very supportive, and it's timing. It's just a matter of things coming together.
You want to get into some questions now, or
Let's do it.
I mean, you came in with a manifesto, and I didn't know how far through it you had gotten. So pull your mic back up when you're ready to go there.
One of the things we're really blessed with is we love our fans that participate. And the thing I ask Dan all the time is, really, this is for you guys. I mean, this is for you to hear what's important to you, for me to be able to go through things that may be on your mind or that we might not even know to address. And this was Dan, coming to me saying, I think it'd be really helpful if our fans could hear from you about, where are we with the programs, what's going on that's important, because we don't always know what's on your mind and what your questions are, but we're happy to go through it. But Dan, you always bring the manifesto, but what do you think's on your mind as I grab a sip of water here?
What's on my mind?
Yeah, what are some things?
How much time do we have? No, I think that most fans are probably the most interested or concerned in football getting back to becoming a regular playoff participant, which Clay has done a good job of getting there. We've been there twice and should have been there at least a third year. You know what they say when you take your fate and put it in the hands of a group of people who go behind closed doors and call themselves a committee. And then I think the thing that is most on the minds of basketball fans is, and you just mentioned it, Timmons Arena.
Yeah, I'll speak to the football side. I think Clay's done a remarkable job of positioning this program exactly where it needs to be. And I agree
100%.
And I'm not, you're around it. I'm not making any excuses for anything, but he had a very difficult loss of a transfer at a critical position at the beginning of this transfer portal during a year where you played a full season inside the same calendar year without any opportunities to adjust. And that's not taking anything away from the program, but the program had built all the right pieces at the right place that they wanted to be. And they just struggled. They struggled to move the ball at critical times. But I love the way they finished the season, where they began to find their rhythm and figure out who they are and figure out their identity and get all these pieces in place. But the investment for Furman football and the expectation is a championship expectation. And it comes from Clay. It comes from the alumni. It comes from the team. Those guys don't want anything less than that. And we went to Virginia Tech 2 years ago. They were there to beat them. We're talking about Clemson this year. They're not walking in there to roll over. They're there to beat them. And I know that's a tall task when we talk about what they're taking on, but that's what they are. But the reality is we can't look at the FBS competition games in terms of where we are. That's not the barometer. That's part of the experience, is that within the Southern Conference and what we control, we should be a dominant football program year in, year out, based on how we're built, what we do, and based on even academic and athletic standards. That's where Clay wants it to be. That's where we want it to be. That's what we're growing into. And Clay, to his credit, has made some really successful tweaks within his program. He's done some different things that I think are going to benefit the program as a whole. And I am really excited about where the program's going on a year in, year out basis. That is the point of emphasis. So to Clay's credit, that's what we're working on there. The program's invested. The program's got commitment. We're constantly kind of tweaking things to try to make it better. One of the questions that was in there, you and I both talked about it real briefly before we got started here. One of the fans asked the question. He said, "What's a conversation you had with Clay?" I want to make sure I get this right.
Something that you told him, an answer that he didn't like, but you're working to change that answer?
Yeah, and I thought it was a great question. I was like, man, that's a good question. And I really don't have a direct answer. What I mean by that is that with each of our coaches, who I am and what we're going to do, there's this concept of truth and transparency. And I've tried to share that since I got here, is that you might not always like what I'm going to tell you, but I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to give you the straight information. I'm going to ask you to do the same with me. I'm going to ask you to go both ways. If you don't like something that we're doing, tell me. Let's be transparent with each other. And Clay and I have built this really strong relationship from day one because I think we're entirely on the same page with what we're trying to do here. And doing things together doesn't mean you always like everything you hear. Like there may be certain things that we don't like, things that we think should be adjusted or should be changed quicker than possible. But I think the process we've gone through of what we're trying to get done has been really, really good. And I think Clay has answered the call in every way in terms of what we're working on and how we're trying to grow the program, engage the program. We could always do more, and we're going to continue to do more, but I feel really good about where the program's at. Trying to think specifically about anything I've ever told Clay that he didn't want to hear. I mean, every coach is going to have frustrations. Every coach is going to want certain things to be a little bit different. And a lot of the things that we're working on together, I'm not a complainer, and I'm not a guy that focuses on what we can't do. I focus on what we can do, and I try to find creative solutions. So one thing Clay and I have been working through, and have met with her president, and she's supporting it, is just some strategic things relative to the focus of the program and where it's growing, and some things I haven't had a chance to share with Clay because they're fresh and they're new. But I don't think there's any one thing that I've ever told Clay that we haven't been on the same page with, that we're not working towards together. And in general, I kind of feel that way with all of our coaches. Every now and then I've got to share something with them that they don't like. But since I've been here, there's nothing that I've brought to any of their attention that's a surprise. There's nothing that I've brought to them that they wouldn't agree with. Now, there's things that I want to tweak. There's things that they want to tweak that we're working towards. And I think we're in lockstep with trying to do those things. But I would love for that same question to be asked of Clay and to figure out what his answer would be to that. And tell me if there's any one thing. But I don't know if there's any one thing.
Well, staying with football, you talked about the revenue increase and the fact that 4 of our 5 home games we had over 10,000 people in attendance, and we had all the game day stuff going on outside the stadium. But as we were talking about a moment ago, you can never go back. You can only go forward. So one of the questions was, what programs do you have in place to put even more butts in seats this football season?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. We have to double down on what we just did. And one of the things when I looked at some of these questions, I didn't know if the person asking them had been around for last year and experienced what we were doing last year. But we've got to double down on what we did. And what we did last year was the beginning of an initiative to engage certain groups. So I look at it internal groups. The goal here with our students is to get every single student to be a part of this football program and to feel a sense of ownership with it. And growth in terms of a part of it. And last year was really good. Last year was something that we got started with them and their student fan zone and keeping them engaged. And we've got more to do. It's gotten increasingly hard to not just get students to come to football games, but get them to stay. That's a challenge. And a lot of that's going to be audiovisual. Some of it's going to be technology. Some of it's going to be fan experience. But the things that we've tried to do by bringing the fans closer to the field, that was one of the things when I got here. I was like, why don't you let these people down on the field? Everything was kind of tightened up and buttoned up, and they weren't allowed to. The goal is to have, at a program at this level, as much accessibility as possible to get as many people on the field or down the field. And I don't even think people have fully caught on to the fact that you can literally be standing in the end zone right next to the touchdown and right there on the field on either side, or walk around it and be a part of it. But when I look at how do we get more people here, I look at our internal community first, which means how do we maximize and get as many students as we possibly can to be a part of this process, which is really the outreach on the part of our department. I look at the same way with our faculty, with our staff, with our alumni, with our fans, and all the programming that goes into it. One of the things that's coming up this year is, Clay wants to play a Thursday night game because he wants to see, from his perspective, what's the impact on this in terms of rest between games and recovery, but also what's a Thursday night going to be like here on this campus? Does it increase student participation? Does it increase fan participation? Saturdays are probably an easier day for a family to plan for, but we're going to try it. We're going to do something that he wants to do, and we'll support it in terms of where we see we're going to go. But in terms of butts and seats, the number one thing is to focus on our internal community first, which means all the people that are actually engaged with us. And we got to make football a priority, where when you see football on the schedule for Furman, we need you here. And that's going to be our football alumni. That's going to be our fan base. That's going to be our students. Everyone that's a part of it. We got to make it fun and enjoyable. One of the major areas that we got to change that we're working on right now is the whole concession area has got to be so much better than it is right now, because we had so many people here last year, we weren't able to service them the right way, the way they needed to. So we got to change that. You've had some great ideas for that as well that we're working on. And then past that, we've got to engage our community in a way that makes this the place to be for a Saturday. And you look at Greenville and the activities that take place and the engagement that takes place. Those things are happening in our community, and we've got to make Furman the hot spot where it's going to go. We've been really encouraged by a lot of the groups that participated and the people that have come out, because once they've experienced this and the music and the atmosphere and the band and the fun and the food trucks, they want to come back. But we've got an opportunity. Like you and I are looking at right now at this stadium, that visiting side section in terms of what that is and what that represents has got to improve in terms of where we're going and growth in terms of fans, because I think the experience on this side of the stadium has been really good. We've got to get the experience on that side of the stadium to grow and improve. Some of it's scheduling. You know, like Clay intentionally wanted to play North Greenville because he believes it's going to drive a strong fan base. It's going to bring people in here. And in this particular year, we weren't able to get some of the other games we wanted to get. This was a game we needed to get in terms of getting the rhythm in our schedule and give our guys an opportunity to compete and have a positive experience. But driving fans and having them be a part of this is going to be a big part of it. But I would say the simplest way to answer it is to double down on what we're doing and do it even better, because we just did it this past year as an introduction and just to get better at what we're doing.
I got to tell you this, Clay, by scheduling this game on that Thursday night, has actually done me a favor.
Good.
Because that's actually my 33rd wedding anniversary,
Good.
God willing. And I did not know this when we got married back in 1989, but because I wasn't involved in college athletics then. But my anniversary for the last 20-some-odd years has always, every year, coincided with some kind of broadcast, some kind of something or other going on. So by playing it actually on our anniversary night, Angela and I are going to get to go away for the rest of the weekend. Yeah. So I got to buy Clay lunch or something just for scheduling that game and making Mrs. Scott happy. That's the big thing.
And I think that's part of it too, from Clay's perspective, is that number one, happy anniversary, and it's great for you to enjoy. Because I know as my wife and I have gone through this with a lot of holidays and coaching, is that you don't get to do a lot of them in terms of where you're at. But in terms of Clay's thought process, is that a lot of teams have gone to Thursday night games. They've gone to the point where they're trying to get a little more space in their schedule. And also the recognition that it is Labor Day weekend, and you lose a little bit for hosting a home game on Labor Day weekend because some people just travel. You know, it's just a part of what they do in terms of their own personal schedule.
Wrapping up summer.
We've got to get to the point where Furman football is important enough that people base their schedules around what we do, and they make decisions around it. And we understand if you're coming from a distance, it's difficult to come from a distance to support the program if you're further away. But you know, if our students engage this and if this is successful, it's just something he wanted to try. The other thing too, this is a great local game for us to get some rhythm. We got a new team with some new coaches, and we've got to get some rhythm to our program in terms of where we're going big picture, and that's part of what his process is, because the rest of his schedule is very aggressive and in a really good league. So I do feel good about that, but we're going to continue to, number one, focus on the internal community, the external community, and double down on what we've been doing. But we got a plan.
What do you see as the most needed facility upgrade needs in the football program?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we spent time inside the stadium, and you and I are looking at it right now, and you know the turf looks amazing, and the facility has been improving, which we're really happy about, big picture. So a lot of those things are coming together. The Pierce Horton building obviously is awesome. You know, we've got a great football building here. Would love it if it had some suites, but it doesn't. But you know, it would be great to be able to market this even more in terms of the fan experience. But couple different things is that we got to continue to focus on the stadium itself for improvements in terms of fan experience. We got to continue to make that better as we go, and that's going to be everything from audio, visual, you know, the screens and the things that we do in terms of the game experience. That the concessions area is definitely a point of focus for me. I want that to be improved and to be more accessible in the way that it needs to be. But if we look at larger facilities projects we talked about, it's interesting. We've got a really great weight room for our athletic department. You know, donors have been very generous and supported that. It's awesome. The challenge with the weight room is it supports the whole department. So that's it's a plus and a minus. It's a plus because it's really good. It's a minus because we've got teams that are competing to get in there. So we've had conversations with our football alumni and donors that they would like to invest in an end zone project that would involve potentially a weight room that would be dedicated for football and be able to be used in that way, and also some more donor hospitality and space there. We've also got feedback from students. They'd love to have a student space for them that could probably double as a student space and also hospitality space. So we're engaging that. I would say that if you look at our priority list in terms of what we're trying to do capital projects-wise, the most immediate need is the continued improvements in Timmons Arena. We'd also like to add a turf field that would accommodate both our lacrosse programs and our other programs on the other side of campus over that way. That's something that was in the works prior to me getting here, and something that we're going to take on and work on that in earnest, because that would help us be more efficient in so many different ways for all of our teams. So I would say the most immediate need would be consider an additional weight room, an additional facility attached to the stadium, continued stadium improvements, and a turf field would actually help us a lot with a lot of our sports that are impacted by needing a turf besides Paladin Stadium.
This is Inside Furman Athletics, our final one until August with Athletic Director Jason Donnelly. Been going for about 50 minutes now, so let's try to kick it into gear here and get to some more of these questions. Jason, do you anticipate being in the Southern Conference in 5 years, and if so, what developments would change your mind?
Yeah, great question. And the answer I would say is yes. We just went through a process. Last year was a little bit more. I don't think the word contentious is the right word, but there was a lot going on around college athletics realignment. I would say that almost every member of the Southern Conference was approached by other conferences to move on and leave, Furman included. So when you look at what we were working with, I think in a really good way, the athletic directors in the conference and the presidents in the conference were able to come to an agreement that for now, the Southern Conference is the best place for all of our member institutions from a standpoint of like-minded missions overall, even though we're divided in state schools and private schools and academies. Likewise, missions, we're similar in that respect. Regionality really matters, regionality in terms of the ability for us to travel and compete and do it in an economically affordable way was really important for all of us. I think the ability to compete in the sports that are really primary sports was really important, to understand that the importance of football in a conference such as ours, basketball being a point of emphasis, the Olympic sports that are part of it, all those different things. And I think history and tradition really played into that in terms of looking at the Southern Conference. So just this past year, the presidents voted to double down on the league and to increase exit fees, which is really a sign of commitment to the conference, to agree that we're all going to work together. We've also been working to try to grow our conference, that there's some strategic institutions that if they were open to, and we're going to be selective with that process, we're not just going to be open-minded to it, but that to get the footprint of our conference to really reflect the excellence that we're working towards together. So I would say the answer, if you had to ask me right now if we're going to be here, the answer would be yes for now. Now, what would change that? Economics. The ability for us to drive more revenue, the ability for us to have a little bit of a larger brand relative to those things would be an attractive feature for us, and the same way it would be an attractive feature to other schools in the Socon if things change. And the things that would change economics on that would be either football or basketball relative to where we are. But the point we have now is we want to win the conferences. We want to win conference championships. We want to be a dominant figure in this conference. We want to have our academic athletic excellence. We want to be able to afford what we're doing while we grow our brand. But right now, the answer is yes, Southern Conference is where we are.
All right, moving on, what specific initiatives do you have in place or rolling out to drive greater visibility to the athletic programs? And I think that kind of goes along with the question that's after that, talking about leveraging social media to grow the fan base beyond local graduates. I think 7 is actually probably part of an answer to 6. Social media has to play a role in those initiatives, but what do we have as far as increasing our visibility to the Furman fan base? Yeah,
Dan, I think we're actually in progress of doing that. We hired Drew Ingraham, who you've worked very closely with, who's our new director of external affairs, senior associate AD for external affairs, coming from Texas Tech, has already done an amazing job to get this started. This is going to be a daily effort to grow the brand and to grow the visibility of the department. And there's different phases that we're going to focus on. One that we just talked about is our campus impact in terms of what we do on our campus and the way we engage our internal community. The next piece would be how do we grow Greenville? The Greenville conversation goes beyond just athletics. It's a conversation we're having with our university leadership, with our board of trustees, with our community. We can do so much more, and we've got to tie into that partnership in terms of where we are in Greenville and the upstate. And then we're going to take this show on the road. We're getting ready to go out to different communities and to reach out to different cities. And this is something I planned on doing when I got here, but the pandemic slowed us down. Is we're looking at the top 10 markets where Furman fans are to engage them and to pull them back in. But there's a weird thing about Furman that I picked up when I got here. It was almost like for a 15, 20, maybe 30-year period of time that the fan base piece wasn't promoted or pushed the way it maybe needed to be. And we've got some work to do to bring those people back in terms of how we engage them with campus events and with athletics. And that's where everything from the weekends at the Well to the football game day experiences to the growth of athletics and to think about what are the things we need to do to resonate in our community. So even things you may not see now that may be a part of it down the road that we're working on. But I feel really good about what we're doing and the engagement effort that we have, not just here in athletics, but also with our campus partners. Our communications team is doing a remarkable job. So I would just say it's a steady increase on growing a fan base. It's a steady increase on growing our alumni. And we got to have these great relationships that are going to be able to stand the test of time, and we got to service those relationships and make them feel great. So I feel good about that, but that's really Drew Ingraham's role and what he's bringing to the table for our department.
How do you see name, image, likeness impacting Furman athletics?
I think we've already done a good job with that already in making sure that our student athletes, number one, know that they're supported in this space and that we support that endeavor. We do have a platform for student athletes to participate in, and it's a way for them to engage it. A number of student athletes are. We've got the name, image, and likeness going on right now in support of our athletes because we've got unique brands. We've got brands with football and basketball and track and field and golf. We've got some really good stuff going on there. I don't think name, image, and likeness is going to affect Furman athletics as much as it's going to affect the Power Fives because the fan base is there. So you talk about growth of fan base. If our fan base continues to grow and our fan base continues to accelerate and we're a bigger player in that space where the brand recognition is greater and the revenue generation is greater, this will become a bigger thing for us as we go. But the way that we position it right now is supporting our student athletes, supporting our alumni efforts, supporting our corporate opportunities. But we're open to all ideas in terms of the growth of this and mindful of what the impact will be on our campus. But I don't think name, image, and likeness is going to have as large an impact as the transfer portal for Furman. I think that has a larger impact for us in terms of growth and opportunities, both in terms of recruiting, retention, and bringing new students in. One of the things I'm really encouraged that our coaches are figuring this out is it's not just who you retain and who you keep, and it's not just who you recruit, it's not just who you retain, it's also how do we replace and add. So I'm really encouraged. We've had some new transfers coming in that are going to be a part of this that fit our mission. And I think it's great. But my one thing I would have loved for Furman to have been a few years ahead of this before I got here in terms of how do we anticipate master's programs impact or how do we anticipate transfer portal type things because we may have been able to retain some of the student athletes that we lost us and just ran out of academic programs for them we didn't have before.
What do you believe is the most marketable asset at Furman?
Our people. It's not even close. We have phenomenal people when it comes to our coaches, when it comes to our student athletes, when it comes to our leadership, when it comes to our alumni. This has got to be a people proposition. What we do at Furman's got to be about who we are, what we do, yourself included. I'd put you up against anyone in the country in terms of the value that you bring to Furman athletics and what you do. And, we have great people here. And we've got to market those people and engage the people, and we've got to be able to celebrate what we're doing, the successes of this, and pull more people in. I get to see firsthand the impact that our coaches and student athletes and our alumni have upon others. And we got to make this about people, and we got to make this a value add for Furman. The reason I mentioned service is that service is a way for us to take our mission and to share it and to have more people identify with what we're really doing. So a lot of this, sometimes it's not just fundraising. A lot of times people are like, oh, you're raising this, you're raising that. It's friend raising. We've got to have more people connected to the Furman family that really feel strongly about the fabric of what we do, based on the people that we do, and to grow that. And we do the same journey at Villanova, 10 years ago. That was an institution that was growing, that had a loyal and strong fan base. And how did it grow together? And it was the people. As you began to find more and more ways to connect that synergy of the people and to bring those different things. The marketability also is success. The more success you have and the more exposure you have and the more opportunities you have, the more incremental growth you have for your department. And we've got to invest in successful ventures. And everyone here knows what the impact of that basketball championship game was in 4 seconds away. And it was heartbreaking. But the growth of that and the feeling around it, anyone that was in Asheville that day that felt it, that was there, anyone that was following nationally understood it. So when you invest in your people and you got the right people around you and you have a process to what you're trying to do, combined with great performance, you can do anything. And that's really where we're headed with Furman Athletics.
All right, a couple more because I think you've addressed some of the other questions already. Do you have the local media engaged at the level you'd like?
No. No. I feel really good. I mean, we got some great beat writers that follow us and do a great job. So they're awesome. The work that Scott Keeler does around the program and everyone else that's a part of it. But we need more and we need greater impact. We need to continue to invest strategically in a changing market when it comes to media. What I mean by that is that feel really good about our digital work that we're doing. Would like to grow it. Would like to have more eyes on what we do. If you look at TV exposure for Furman Athletics, when we play national TV games with basketball or football, the eyes on our product is just totally different than when it is on just the ESPN Plus. ESPN Plus is great, but you got to tune into that as opposed to just being available around that. Anyone that watches Furman, when we play national TV contests nationally, the exposure level is just a whole different level. So we got to continue to focus on that. That's where I really appreciate the great work that's been done by Bob Ritchie and done by Clay Hendricks to give us those opportunities. Even today, like Furman's on the Golf Channel today. Like yesterday, Dottie Pepper is one of the lead announcers. There's the PGA Championships. I mean, she's right there, on the final tee. But we got to continue to grow our brand recognition digitally. I love the work that we're doing in radio. I love the work that we're doing in terms of your work, the content there. But the print media has been concerning. We've got to figure out a strategy relative to the Greenville news and a changing climate. We have a lot of conversations around this, around Garnet. USA Today and everything around it started changing about 20 years ago. They started changing the way that they report the news locally versus nationally and the way that print is out there. I think everyone is mostly reading digital. I'd say 90% of what people are reading is digital. But we've got to be a part of the print and digital platform for Greenville in a better way, stronger way. And that's may require a greater investment or a greater partnership on our part. And that's why we're choosing to partner with all these different places in Greenville. But we've got to continue to grow that brand. One of the things I was really happy about last year is just billboards. We got to be aggressive in terms of how we invest and what our exposure in our media. So am I content with where we are? The answer would be no, but there's a lot of work to do and excited to take it on. Again, that's why we've hired an external AD, because we need someone to come to work every day to think about the growth of this department, the revenue generation of this department, the direction where we're headed. It's something I think about every day, but an AD is going to be pulled in many different ways. And there's a lot of different things that I've got to do to focus on to make sure we're going where we need to go. We need someone's going to focus that day in, day out. But we're on it, and so I'd say the answer is no. We're going to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, and one thing I would say to a certain segment of Furman fans who are, and I think we're all like this to a certain degree, but for older fans who are used to picking up that copy of the newspaper, and they continue, I see on message boards, and I get emails, and people will say, well, the Greenville News is not doing this, and the Greenville News is not doing that. Well, they're not doing it in the print edition because their deadlines are now like 7 p.m. for the print edition. The newspaper industry, which I love, I spent a decade plus in it, unfortunately has changed, and not for the better for a lot of other reasons. I could get on that soapbox. But as Jason said, the coverage is there. It's just in digital form on the website. Now, Greenville News, you have to pay for a website subscription just like you have to pay to get the physical paper delivered to you. But there are other options, and you mentioned Scott Keeler, who works as a stringer for the Greenville News after being there for years, but he also has the Furman Sports Report. You have John Hooper and his Mid-Major Madness. Yep. And so there are other avenues out there to get game day coverage. Monty Hooper and the FUATT site, which was brand new and really dove deep into covering Furman athletics this year as a beat writer and as an everyday thing. So the avenues are there. You just have to be willing. And I'm kind of the same way. It took me a long time to not want to pick up that newspaper anymore, but now I never pick one up.
Yeah, and Dan, I'm a traditionalist in that sense too. I mean, I grew up with a love and fascination for sports, of reading the sports section day in, day out, and reading the transaction line, and then reading all the different stories and everything that came with the either AP or the individual stories. I think what we're all saying is kind of the same thing, which is what is Furman's impact and opportunities in Greenville, and how do we get the coverage that the institution needs, not just the athletic department. Right. And today's digital feed and newspaper feed is that it's all based on clicks. I grew up right outside New York City. It was about how many people picked up the paper. It wasn't about it was delivered. I delivered papers. I mean, everybody did this deal, and we've got to get to the point that Furman's value is maybe greater than the clicks. It may be more about the impact and the opportunities that come with it, and how do we have consistency in that messaging in Greenville. And I know when I read that question, the first thing I think of is how do we have a better connection with the Greenville news and not have naysayers. I mean, I've asked the question many times, and I hear all the reasons why not. We've got to think of the reason why. How do we make it possible and get to that point? But that'll be a continued point of emphasis for our department as we move forward.
I think the final one for us to cover here, Jason, is one that we have had before, and that is the Tennessee game.
Yeah, that's happening. That's I had to double check to make sure you mentioned the contract that we got it back. But yeah, that's 2026. We're going to play Tennessee. Certainly very excited about that, and I think we got a great slate of FBS games coming up over the next several years, which we're really looking forward to. I know that the Clays had some conversations with Billy Napier and Florida, might be possibly down the road. Particularly as a part of that relationship, and he's been very supportive in that way. But no, I'm optimistic about where we're headed with this, and it going in a great way. And we love these big games, but looking forward to getting Tennessee on the schedule in 2026, which is a makeup from the COVID year, and they did right by that. They did everything they could to try to put that together at the time. They told us the next possible date that we can play that game, we will, and they've owned that and feel really good about that. But the big picture, Dan, I feel really good. I know that basketball scheduling is a question. I think as we get to the end of the summer, we'll talk more about. Bob and the staff are working really hard at putting that together. The main point of emphasis in that schedule is going to be the multiple team tournament in Charleston. So we're going to encourage all of our fans. We're going to have events a part of this to come down to Charleston November 17th through 20th. It's also when we play Wofford here on Saturday. Not by any design, but we'll have a bus that'll go back and forth and get everybody to and from. And Dan, I know you'll be doing it. You'll be going from Charleston back to Greenville and back to Charleston. But we're definitely looking forward to that experience in terms of where we're going to go. Coach Ritchie and his staff are going to build out a schedule that they think based on metrics and based on data and based on what they need to do to be an NCAA tournament team. We'll build around that schedule. We do have challenges. Some of the bigger teams that you think would want to play us or be open to it just don't want to right now based on the work that program's done. And that's not a bad thing. It's a part of scheduling. And that's where you go with this. But we're going to continue to work on the things that we do across the board. But as we wrap this up, Dan, I just want to say thank you to our fan base. It's been an honor and pleasure to serve and be a part of this on my part and my family's part. We love being here. And we love it because we get to work with great people. We get to serve great student athletes. We get to work with a great alumni and fan base that's been incredibly supportive. My challenge to our fan base would be to continue to engage, continue to reach out, continue to support, continue to prioritize Furman athletics. We got to continue to make sure everyone knows how important this is to all of us in terms of what we're trying to do, and continue to recognize the moment that we have. We're in a really good place with the people that we have and the excellence that we're a part of and what we're building towards. And just in my side of it, it's a great sense of optimism of what's going to happen and what's ahead of us in spite of a lot of uncertainty around college athletics. But we got a great thing going with Furman athletics, and we should appreciate it and continue to focus on being the best Furman that we're going to be. But in this summer, Dan, I hope you get some time off, or I hope our fans enjoy their vacation. And everyone here is gearing up to come back really strong in August. And during that time, a lot of work will be done and behind the scenes. But as we get into next year, we're looking forward to a great year ahead for Furman athletics.
Are you going to have any voice left for the rest of your meetings today?
No. And you know me. I'm programmed out all day. And in a funny way, my kids engaged me in a silent contest over the weekend. It was funny. I'm so competitive that I refuse to lose. My wife said, "Man, I've never heard you not talk this much." But I love it, Dan. I love the job, and I love the energy, and I love the people, and I love Furman. So we got a lot of great things going, but yeah, I got plenty to go. We got get some big meetings today coming up.
Good stuff, Jason. Thanks. That is Jason Donnelly, the athletic director here at Furman, and this has been Inside Furman Athletics. We will take a couple of month break and come back and get it going on a weekly basis again come August. Until then, for Jason and all of us with Furman, I'm Dan Scott, as always, saying God bless you, and so long, everybody.